War doesn't always arrive with fire. Sometimes it arrives in silence. And silence can be deadlier than any explosion. A few hundred miles off the Venezuelan coast, a submarine slipped away from port. Under the illusion of control. The crew believed stealth meant invisibility. They believed the ocean was wide enough to hide them. They believed that once they sank beneath the surface, the world above would lose them. They were wrong. This was the Caribbean, one of the most heavily surveilled bodies of water on the planet. Calm on the surface, brutal beneath it. Here, every wave hides a lattice of listening systems built across decades. Not paranoia. Not guesswork. 50 years of preparation. Passive acoustic arrays. Undersea sensors laid along the ocean floor. Patrol aircraft moving in disciplined patterns. Detection layers refined again and again since the Cold War, until the sea itself became an instrument. The Venezuelan submarine Sabalo was old and rusting, barely refitted enough to leave port. Its crew carried something more dangerous than poor equipment, desperation mixed with political intent. And desperation doesn't think like a calm planner. It takes risks because it believes the risk is the message. They imagined themselves as hunters. In reality, they were already the prey. The ocean is not just water in modern warfare. It is a medium that carries evidence. Sound moves through seawater at roughly 1,500 meters per second, faster than most people realize. That single number changes everything. It means that every mechanical action becomes an announcement. A valve turning. A pump cycling. A ballast adjustment. A torpedo tube door cracking open. Each one is a signal, often reaching sensors and analysts long before a human mind on board finishes the thought. To the Sabalo crew, flooding torpedo tubes was preparation. To the forces tracking them, it was a real-time blueprint of intent. As the submarine descended, the detection layers activated like a net tightening. Ahead of the carrier strike group, U.S. submarines patrolled silently, unreadable, unmoving, and lethal if required. Every propeller stroke, every shift in speed, every acoustic signature the hull produced as it cut through water was logged, compared, and classified. Above, P-8 Poseidon aircraft moved through the sky without fanfare, dropping sonar buoys in precise grids. Each buoy entered the water with a small splash, nothing dramatic to the naked eye. But for analysts, each splash was a node in a pattern. A point in a cage. Somewhere hundreds of miles away, operators watched the tracks assemble on screens. The Sabalo moved with confidence, unaware that its route had become a predictable line in someone else's system. The submarine's torpedoes were relics from a different era, designed for a world that no longer exists. They were still dangerous, yes, because a large warhead exploding beneath a ship's keel doesn't care what decade built it. But in the shadow of modern undersea warfare, the gap between old and new isn't measured in years. It's measured in generations. The strike group knew the crew roster, fuel capacity, endurance limits, and weapon readiness before the submarine had fully submerged. The illusion of stealth remained intact only inside the Venezuelan hull. The danger, however, was very real. The Sabalo pushed toward its target, the USS Gerald R. Ford. From the carrier's deck, nothing appeared unusual. From the Venezuelan captain's perspective, the sea looked clear and the target looked singular. What he could not see was the reality around him, U.S. submarines positioned to close angles of approach, destroyers maintaining layered sonar coverage, aircraft overhead feeding data, and sensors below capturing every trace of movement. He saw one target. He didn't see an entire system. And then came the moment where modern warfare collapses time. The torpedo tubes flooded. On the Sabalo, the process took about 90 seconds to reach readiness. 90 seconds of procedure. 90 seconds of commitment. 90 seconds that, in the logic of deterrence, can decide whether the world escalates or steps back. For the United States, those 90 seconds were more than enough. The flooding created a distinct hydraulic signature, sound evidence of intent. Within seconds, sensors detected it. Within 15 seconds, operators classified it. Within 30 seconds, firing solutions were prepared for modern Mark 48 torpedoes. Everything required for lethal action was ready, quietly, efficiently, without panic. And yet no shot was fired. Because the message had already been delivered. A single active sonar ping echoed through the water, an unmistakable signature associated with the USS Mississippi. It wasn't an attack. It wasn't a warning broadcast over radio. It was information, transmitted through the ocean itself. We see you. We have tracked you. We are locked on. And you are alive because we choose restraint. In modern deterrence, that is the cleanest possible victory. It avoids casualties. Avoids escalation, avoids giving a failing regime the martyr narrative it craves. It forces a choice without firing a weapon. The Sabalo could have continued. It could have fired and provoked a chain reaction. But once you understand you are inside an unbreakable surveillance system, firing no longer feels like a bold attack. It feels like suicide. The submarine reversed course. The political gamble collapsed. The statement dissolved. What remained was the blunt reality that the sea had already decided the outcome. Above, the surface returned to calm. No explosions. No headlines. No wreckage. Just control. And then the second story begins, because modern undersea conflict isn't only about ships. Sometimes the true battlefield is far more fragile, the cables. Beneath the Caribbean, transatlantic fiber optic cables run like arteries, economic lifelines, communication backbones, the invisible infrastructure holding modern societies together. They are not just wires. They are power. And because they are power, they become targets for operations designed to never be admitted. A Russian undersea mission unfolded with the same confidence. That doomed the Sabalo, the belief that silence equals anonymity. The crew assumed they could work near critical infrastructure and remain inside the gray zone of plausible deniability, surveying, research, maintenance. They assumed that if no one fired, no one could prove intent. But once again, they mistook quiet for invisible. NATO did not rush. It did not scramble. In the sensor age, time itself is a weapon. Observation builds certainty. Certainty creates legitimacy. And legitimacy is what turns a shadow operation into a strategic failure. AP-8 Poseidon appeared at exactly the moment secrecy mattered most, descending into view without aggression, without theatrics, simply present. That calm presence was worse than a threat, because calm usually means the other side already knows. A grid of sonar buoys formed an acoustic cage. Below the surface, the Russian submersible, AS-37, worked in the darkness, capable of deep operations where few platforms can follow. The mission relied on ambiguity. Until the instant metal touched metal. Contact with the cable ended the illusion. At that moment, suspicion becomes evidence. The operation is no longer maybe. It becomes intent made physical. And in modern conflict, once you are caught in a sensitive space, you do not need to be destroyed to lose. You simply need to be placed in a position where every option collapses except retreat. The Russians attempted a familiar intimidation tactic, green lasers aimed toward aircraft sensors and cockpits, designed to provoke disengagement while maintaining deniability. It was a move meant to pressure without crossing the line into open fire. It failed. The Poseidon held course. Protective systems filtered the glare. No radio warnings. No reaction. No hesitation. Silence remained the weapon, and that silence communicated something devastating. Your intimidation means nothing here. Then NATO changed the environment without firing a single shot. HMS Iron Duke surged forward and cut across the Russian vessel's bow, close enough to matter, far enough to remain legally defensible. The sea responded immediately. Wake energy slammed into the hull. The deck pitched. Equipment shifted. Stability collapsed. The crane holding the AS-37 began to sway. Underwater, the submersible twisted on its tether. Precision operations require stability. Stability requires control. And control was being denied in real time, not by missiles, but by physics. Orders changed. Recover the submersible. Now. Searchlights snapped on. Cutting through darkness like a confession. The calm rhythm of covert work became urgent movement. Everything visible. Everything recorded. Above, the Poseidon continued to circle. Buoys fed. Real-time intelligence. There was no need for harassment, no need for violence. Observation was enough. The AS-37 rose slowly, awkwardly, pulled back into daylight like evidence. The mission ended. Not in explosion, but in exposure. No cable was severed. No one died. But the defeat was complete, the objective was denied, the method was revealed, the operator was forced out under watch. The Russian vessel withdrew, slow, deliberate, and humiliated in silence. NATO did not pursue. It did not need to. Control had already been demonstrated. 2 scenarios. 2 different actors. 1 shared principle. In modern naval warfare, the decisive question is not who shoots first. It's who sees first. Who understands first. Who removes the enemy's options before the enemy even realizes the space is controlled. Deterrence is no longer just doctrine. It is an ecosystem of sensors, analysis, discipline, and patience. Real power does not need spectacle. When dominance is absolute, a single sonar ping can stop an attack before it begins. The Caribbean returned to its deceptive tranquility. Fishermen crossed paths with cargo ships. Civilian traffic moved unaware. No breaking news banners followed. Yet beneath the waves, a story had been written in signals, pings, and uninterrupted observation. And every adversary watching learned the same truth. We see you. We control the space. You do not move without leaving a trace. War does not always roar. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it waits. And when it moves with such quiet precision that you almost miss it. Until it is already over.